It's a pleasure for me to be here, Your Excellency, Dr. Balagrishan, Excellencies, the ambassadors from Sweden, France, and as far as I know, Canada as well, distinguished guests. It's an honor for me to be here. Although we are on another part of the world, we got some common grounds. You are a city nation, and we are a nation of cities. But both we have a very strong economies that broadly are attached. We both believe in technology without to be blind believers. And I tell a little bit about my city and what we do on IoT, and it's related to what I call smart societies. I prefer to use the word smart society instead of smart city, because smart city is mainly dominated by technology. And smart society is saying something about the connection with the citizens, with the people. We are implementing technology because we want to improve the life of our citizens. Our city is the hardware, high-tech capital, one of them in the world. And we do machines, I must say. When we look to Silicon Valley, for example, they do a lot of applications, apps, and it's a very short economy. Well, let's say when you release an app, you can have a return on investment within 3-4 months. With the machines we are doing, for example, ASML machines, it's the lithography. They are making the wafers. You can make it's a wafer step. You can make the wafers with. They are a development time of 10 years. It's a money burner during this period. So it's very, very complicated to develop this kind of machines, but they're necessary. Because when we look, and you already addressed it, Mr. Minister, you already addressed it, that we are looking to Moore's Law. And ASML is one of the most important drivers of Moore's Law. We are the second strongest economy in the Netherlands. That haven't been so. We were in 1995 facing the most severe economic crisis we have ever had since the Second World War. And we didn't know so, but we were in a transition from traditional manufacturing economy to a digital, creative, and knowledge economy. But at that time, we lost a third of all our labor jobs. Philips, Duff, supply chain, thousands and thousands of labor places went away to South America and Asia. And we had to do something new. And that was our collaboration between the knowledge institutes, the government, and the entrepreneurs. We called it at that time the triple helix. It was one of our scientists who said, we are connected more than we have been in the past. We have to share forces. And then he said, it's like a DNA string. Well, there are 2 DNA strings, but we made 3 DNA strings, and it was the triple helix, was founded there. So, and it was rather successful. And how were we doing this? We were sitting there, it was not me, but the former mayor. He was sitting there, round table, with the entrepreneurs and the scientists, and putting off his cap as a mayor. And being there as a very, very, a bright and a very interested man who was concerned about his society, and he asked to do the other people to do the same. And asking them what's necessary to improve our society, to improve our economy. And then all kinds of things came up. And then when there was a program, we made a 5-year program, the first one, and they put on the cap again, and they said, okay, you are going to do this, you are going to do this, and this is your responsibility. We made 4 chapters. One is about infrastructure. It's what you call the basics. The second one is about business. How can we make money with the knowledge that is available? The third one is, and that's a very interesting discussion with all these people around the table, what kind of technologies see we coming up and is necessary to develop on the universities so that the companies can use it later on. And the last one is about people. Everything is about people. How can we make new talent? How can we make that they are so talented that their talent will be used with the corporates later on or in the universities as well? So it's about a labor market, it's about education and that kind of things. We did it for a couple of times. We have 3 5-year plan, but I will explain you what we are doing now because it's a little bit different from the last 15 years. I'll explain it later. The second point was the open innovation. looking to Philips, half of the products of Philips, when you look to all the products of Philips, half of the products of Philips were not available in the market 2 years ago. That means that a life cycle of a product, and it's not only Philips, but a life cycle of a product is 4, 5, 6, 7 years. That's quite expensive because it's not an upgrade. You have to renew the product completely. And that's rather expensive. So Henry Chesbrough, the American economist, said we have to share forces regarding to research and development and came up with the idea of open innovation. In Eindhoven we got a high-tech campus. It's the former physics laboratories of Philips. There are now more than 150 companies working there together, only on research and development, 12,000 people and more than 80 nationalities. We are working there with Samsung, with Panasonic, with all kinds of internationals, but smaller companies as well. What we do is we share the investment money for research. We share the people with the knowledge and the IP. We got an intellectual property management bureau over there. And we share the requirements, the clean rooms and that kind of things. And we share risks as well. And doing so, we speed up the process of research and development. And that means that these products can have an introduction on an earlier moment than all the competitors. It's called open innovation. But open innovation is a closed innovation as well. You pick out your partners. You are not going to deal it with all of them, but it's very interesting. I myself went to something a couple of years ago to convince them to come to Eindhoven. And they were looking at me, and I think that I know what they were thinking. This is a weird mayor. Telling us that we have to collaborate on knowledge, on research and development. But after half a year they called. And now the largest research facility from Samsung out of Korea is in Eindhoven. They are working together on thin film, with a huge amount of data. It's rather complicated to manage this and to research and develop it. But Samsung is there to make affordable screens. Philips is involved to make medical images. We are using it for slides, for solar panels, flexible solar panels of the highest quality. And you can use it in the screens of your cars because you can sensoring and, well, all kind of technological application can be brought in. It's a small area. Eindhoven, the metropolitan area of Eindhoven, got near to 1 million citizens, but we got a huge technological complex with Philips, ASML, NXP, and there are VDL, FEI, a lot of large suppliers as well, and you can find the European headquarters of Intel and Amazon as well. This combination of the triple helix and the open innovation was internationally recognized in the first place in 2009 by the Eurocities organization that told us that what we are doing in this collaboration, that is so successful that it could be seen as the best cooperation throughout of Europe. In 2011, we were named by ICF in New York to be the most intelligent community. And Forbes published in 2013, based on OECD figures, that our region is the most inventive region as well. I'll give you the figures. We do 22.4 patents on every 10,000 citizens on an annual basis. And the second place in the world in this ranking is San Diego in California, and they are doing 8.9, 22.4 against 8.9. So we are rather proud of what we achieved in the last 20 years, because when I told you about the economic crisis, when I became a mayor, there was something happening with me. I saw a list that we could be maybe the smartest region. There was a contest, the smartest region in the world. I said, we are going to do so. It will help us to get more confidence. So we started this procedure, and in 2011, we became the most intelligent community. But then I found out that we were in the top 3 in the world regarding to knowledge. But how much do we earn with this knowledge? And then when you compare it to the other regions in the world, we were in the 13th place. And there, on place number 1 was Tokyo, and you could find areas in Korea and Switzerland and Germany and the United States. So we improved our program for businesses to earn more money per capita with our technological capabilities. And it was rather successful. We are now, I think, on the 6th or 7th place worldwide. But 1.5 years ago, I was invited to go to Shanghai, and there were a lot of mayors there, and we were talking about the 20 years plan, the 20 years program. And then I thought, 20 years ago, we had an economic crisis we had never seen before. And we couldn't imagine where we would be 20 years later. So what is 20 years? It's even hard to look in the next 2 or 3 years. So do you know what will happen in the next 4 or 5 years? When I would have said to you that we were 10 years ago, that we would all use an iPad, then you would not believe it. So we are living in a disruptive time. And that came up for me that, well, we had to change our approach a bit. Still we are working with programs, 5-year programs, but we added a more adaptive way of working together. And that's necessary. I told you it's a disruptive world. We are looking to Uber, Airbnb, Alibaba, and all of them. They are really disruptive. When, for example, Alibaba, it's the largest retailer in the world without any shops. So this is the world we are looking at. And that means that we really have to be adaptive. In this disruptiveness, and thereby the adaptiveness, IoT plays a vital role. What is IoT and what is it not? Refrigerators announcing milk is set to be expire. Self-parking cars, is that IoT? Sometimes they say it's a hype, it's a gadget. Maybe it's so that when I look at this kind of things, it's the way of, like we are doing now, reading the newspaper digitally. It's a new thing of life, but it's an interactiveness which is decisive. Maybe when we look to it, some experts call it is the next big thing and an exponential technology. It's what you were saying, Minister, about the singularity. I'm very impressed about the Singularity University in California, Mountain View. They will have a second settlement in Eindhoven. They advise companies and corporates, and I want to do the same for the public sector, about what kind of challenges we can see and chances and threats we can see coming up in the next, let's say, decade concerning to new technology. But there will be an exponential technology, and others consider it just as empty buzzwords. One thing is for sure, and I'm really convinced about it, that is our lives, our machines, our devices, everything is getting more and more connected to each other. It's not Internet of Things, it's Internet of everything. So, and of course, this creates new possibilities, new innovations, new applications, but new threats as well. And we have to be open and clear about it. New threats as well. And who predicted 15 years ago that nowadays everybody would be connected 24/7, 24/7. And as said, since all the devices become connected as well, it creates a new, unique possibilities for new ideas and new innovations in this decade. You gave some very inspiring vision and new ideas, Mr. Minister, in your speech just done. So, and it's not only here in Asia, it's in Europe, it's in the United States as well. McKinsey had a recently report that reducing buffering time in cities, about what it will bring to us. The time we wait during transportation, by smartering the system, we reduce the buffer time and gaining $60 billion globally. In the same report, we said that all transportation systems together could add up to $800 billion. And McKinsey reported most negative estimation of economic potential of the IoT system as a whole can bring up us $3.9 trillion US dollars, and within 10 years, and the maximum estimation is 11.1. It's not nothing, it's a lot at stake, I would say. So IoT will be, and you were addressing it as well, IoT will be related to Internet of, to Industry 4.0. Without IoT, it will be impossible to realize Industry 4.0 because there must be a connection between the first, the second, the third, and the fourth tier. And we see huge developments there. And I think it's very necessary that we make standards here. Because the manufacturing world, the research, development, manufacturing world, and the sales, after sales, and all that, all these different changes in getting products all over the world will be more globally than we have ever seen before. And that means that the system we are using, the system that is based on the IoTs, should be foreseen with a world standard. And that's not the situation on this very moment, and it's blocking that way. So there is another one, I already said something about the threats. Security will be something that is coming into IoT, with IoT, and cybercrime will be there. I heard a story about, well, it's a strange story. In the United States, there was a very wealthy man who would have vital surgery, and then he became a message that if he would not pay, then they will interfere in the surgery process. So this was a chantage, but it can be a threat in the future. When internet is connecting everything, then it's connecting your processes as well, and it can be interfering in vital aspects of that. IoT is not only economics. It can be an answer to grand challenges as well. And that's the point for me, as a mayor of a city, that we see that climate change, food, water, mobility, health, housing, energy, all these themes are under pressure, and especially in the cities itself. Cities will be the first to cope with these. The effects of the global challenge will be hit the cities first. 80% of the people will live in cities within a short time, in Europe anyway, and in Singapore 100%, and the rest of Asia and the rest of the world will be 70%. So we got a huge assignment as a local government to provide all the amenities that are necessary to make livable cities, but in the meanwhile, all our systems to do so are outdated. So we have to renew them, and cities are. And I see it as Singapore, it's a practical platform, not ideological, and we are solving just problems. That's the difference between our national government. They talk about politics and about ideology, and we as mayors, local government, we just have to organize society on a proper way. Everyone wants to have safety, everyone wants to have a proper mobility system, a good health system. We are not helped by any ideology and politics. So, and I've been there for 12 years. I was member of the Dutch Parliament, and I've seen what's going on there. I'm jealous on Singapore. You only got one level of government, and we got 3 of them. So, in the city, citizens, companies, knowledge institutes, NGOs, government physically meet each other. It's the level, the meso level, where the real society is getting shape. And their interaction leads to dynamics on social and economic and civic and governmental level. And that's why innovation on these themes come from the city, being problem solvers. And that's why this century, and I'm very much sure about it, this century will be the century of the cities. The 19th century was the century of the national states. When I look to Europe, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, the Netherlands, and when I look to the United States as well. Last century was the century of the supranational institutes, like the United Nations, the European Union, the World Bank, IMF, well, it's the Bretton Woods organizations. And now the 21st century will come cities as the main force. Like I told you, the reason for that is that quite a lot of people are coming to the cities, and that the dynamics will be there as well. You find serendipity within the cities because you got a lot of crossovers that you will not find anywhere else in the world. Within 10 years, the 600 largest cities worldwide will provide 65% of the GDP worldwide. 600 cities will provide 65% of the world's GDP. Cities all over the world struggle with national governments for more financial and administrative and experimental freedom. We need space. And it's just what you were saying, Mr. Minister. We have to find out a way how we can implement new technology in the existing society on a proper way. And we do not know the answers exactly. So we have to do experiments. And I always say, future is not developing from A to B. Future is going like this. It's a success, it's a failure, it's a success, it's a failure, it's a success. It's that way. And that means that we have to accept failure as well. And maybe, well, we not always realize, but when you look to all the research on health worldwide, 95% of all the research, medical research, health research, is a failure. Only 5% is success. But it's not a failure, because knowing what's not going to work is a success as well. Because on the shoulders of this failure, what is not a failure, you can make success in the future. And that's strange that the Lancet and the British Medical Journal are only publishing the success research. And I think we have to find out what is working, and that is something that is very important for our international collaboration. What works in Singapore can work in the Netherlands as well, so we can scale up. What will not work in the Netherlands will not work probably in Singapore, but you can learn a lot of it. And that's why we have to exchange experiences. So altogether, technology will help us to solve the grand challenges. In the meanwhile, the grand challenges are too complex to be solved by the national government. And it's not because I want to put the national government aside, but the top-down approach is a really difficult one. And the toolbox of the national government is not always, well, adequate. And maybe I can explain it on the next example. I was in the House of Parliament from 1989 to 2002. I did quite a lot of legislation, laws, and one of them was in 1998. In 1998, we provided a law, and that was the law about the public transport system, and that's the taxi included. I was there. I was the representative of the largest party, the fraction in the parliament. And we did our very best to make a legislation that was up in time, etc. And it was an adequate law for that moment. But we didn't know what would come up, technologically spoken, a day after, a year after, 2 years after. I had never worked with internet at that time. I had heard about it. And it's still the existing legislation in the Netherlands. It's still the existing legislation. It's a legislation without internet on public transport systems. So we adjusted a bit in the meanwhile, but it's not the really answer. And that means that legislation, this instrument of legislation, when we talk about system laws, I divide, well, it's a very easy way to divide kind of legislation. You get value legislation, structure legislation, and system legislation. This is about system legislation, mobility and energy legislation, that kind of thing. When we look to this last one, this legislation is always reflecting on what was, on the past, and can never address the future. So that means that if we want to discover future, we must make it possible that cities, metropolitan areas, where the people are coming together in high density and, well, the challenges are really at stake, that we give them the possibility to do experiences. I tried to do something with Uber Pop. I don't know if you're familiar with Uber Pop. I'm not going to explain. It's not Uber Black, it's Uber Pop. But that was not allowed. We had made a transitional process with the existing taxi drivers to a new system and to try to find out if it will work. And then the national government said, we're going to prohibit this. It's not according to our national legislation. I made myself. So, yeah, I didn't know everything at that time. I would have done something different then. But so laws are frozen political debates. It's a frozen political standpoint of the past. And that means that we are trying to find something new. I already told you we had the programs, but we add something new, and that's the horizontal way of collaboration. It's not new. It is already Manuel Castells who told us in the mid-90s that this society, that our society, will be a network society. It will not anymore top-down, and if there's no top-down, there's no bottom-up either, you can imagine. So it will be horizontally. We see a lot of societal initiatives coming up, but they are on a horizontal surface. So collaboration between government, citizens, companies, and knowledge institutes and NGOs are of the highest importance to organize. And technology will solve the grand challenges to be implemented on a horizontal way. And I have to explain this, why I'm saying this horizontal way. When I look around the world, I'm chair of ICF in New York. We organize 400 regions, technological, economically related regions. And I see, in the meanwhile, that there are tens of thousands of cities who call themselves smart cities. And what's happening there, it's really a hype. Cisco is coming by, and nothing wrong about Cisco. It's a commercial party. Cisco is coming by, others are coming by, and they just say, wow, we got something, we can implement it, you have to pay for it. And when the budget is running out, then Cisco is gone again. So they are doing something for your city. Sometimes it's helpful, and it's okay. But it is not the real essence where you were pointing at as well, Minister, that we have to bring in, it must be a social, inclusive society. We have to bring in the interest of the people in these new processes. And that's really key. So we make platforms. We make platforms, for example, on health. We do have a platform, we invite all kinds of stakeholders, hospitals, doctors, insurance companies, health insurance companies, citizens, elderly, housing corporations, all of them. In this platform, we organize 80 different stakeholders. And we discuss about what do we see regarding to health and health development? What can we do? How can we improve? Who will be involved? And then we ask, okay, there are examples, there are ideas, who will be there as well? So I'll give you a concrete example. A couple of months ago, thank you very much. A couple of months ago, the Philips company came up with an idea for elderly people. We do have a grey population, and we have to find out something that we keep them more independent for a longer period. It's better for the people, and it's cheaper as well. So they came up with a device. You put your hand on this device, and immediately you see the shortage of minerals and vitamins, the level of iron, the level of sugar, the blood pressure, and all kinds of other figures. And here there is a device that is a preparation coming out. And you take it and it will solve the problems, your medical problems. But they don't want to use it. They don't want to use it. And the reason for that is that until yesterday in our system, a nurse came by. And blood pressure and sugar level and that kind of things. But the most important thing was the cup of coffee and the chat. And now they got 2 devices and no nurse anymore. So, and they were in this platform, in this field lab. The elderly say, we don't want to use this. So how can we improve it? And then Philips and the others came in discussion with the elderly. And then they found out, well, maybe we can even improve your societal network. We can, social network. We can do something, and then it's not Facebook, it's more customized. So we can bring in your relation with friends, with people all around you, elderly people in your village or your city as well. And it appeared to come out as very successful. Because what happened is that they got more in touch with the neighbors than they ever had before. When there's someone ill, they're going to help or they will be helped. They are doing shopping for each other. But in the meanwhile, it was something you were saying as well. We get a lot of data as well about the health of these people. So we can add this Internet of Things application. So we know we make it anonymous. We do not know exactly who the person will be, but we know in general what happens with the health of the people in specific areas. And that's the way we try to find out how we can organize the future. The role of the government in IoT develops, there are two specific points, and I'm really worried about. We discussed this already, it's about the standards. I just told you about the standards regarding to Industry 4.0. Who is going to develop these standards? Who's going to develop the standards? Who's going to make these global standards? There is no institute until this moment, and that means that it will be rather complicated to make a global system. So we have to take the initiative together, and I don't know who will be the initiator, but we have to do something on this point. And well, we will have standards, of course, for households. It came out last year on this Congress for households, for public space, and for industry as well. That's a very key point. And this is not only technological standards. I'm talking about moral standards as well. We have to look to them. What are we doing on privacy and all that kind of things? And who is going to organize this privacy legislation or whatever, how you are going to bring it into your standards. So NXP CEO Stroth from Germany, he said a year ago, we have to find a new deal, we have to make a new deal between the different parties involved. A deal that is a global deal that makes it possible to use IoT on a proper way, on a very clever way. And this deal must be settled on a horizontal, with an horizontal approach. We cannot do it as governments. We have to make it on a horizontal with all the stakeholders to develop this new deal. And it must be smart. Well, and why must it be smart? And what's the problem here? You already addressed it. It's the question of governments do know exactly what's going on when we talk about the technological side of IoT. So it will be very hard for them to understand what has to be addressed from the governmental side in the next 4, 5, 6 years. So you have to learn us as people with a technological scientific background, what politicians have to be seen, what they have to see to understand the new developments. Well, we are doing, and you were saying something about the lamppost in the street. We are doing something with these posts. We want to have a new lighting system in the public spaces in the city. And we know exactly what you were saying about the solar panels. We are doing exactly the same with sensors, light, all divided. So we want to have an integrated system. But I can tell you, this integrated system, will it be adequate within 5 years? So it must be adaptive in itself. And then something is very difficult. We got a procurement procedure in Europe that is blocking innovation. Really blocking innovation. I'll give you an example of ICT as a government. I want to have a new ICT system. So we don't know what we have to do with ICT. It's a governmental side. So we ask consultants to come in. They advise us 3 months. Then we start a procurement procedure. We just write out what we want. We ask all kind of corporate companies to address these questions. This lasts 1.5 years, including making the system. That means that from the starting point to the end, it's 2 years. With ICT, well, you have to modify immediately the system when it is released. This is not the way we can work and we can address innovation. So what we did, and I'm very curious, maybe I must not say so, but I'm very curious, we are doing a procurement procedure on dialogue. And this dialogue is that we invite specific corporate alliances with specific qualities, and then we discuss with them, well, what are you going to do to improve and to make this adaptive lamppost with all the new systems, Internet of Things included? And how are you going to bring people involved in this process? And that's very important, citizens. So we are not only saying, okay, you have to listen to the people now, But we want to see, because it's a long-lasting contract, we want to see how you are going to bring people and their ideas and the demands and the new developments in this process for the next 20 years, so that it can be adaptive. So we are doing something that is, I hope it's according to the regulation from the European Union, but we have to find out something. And Europe is seeing this problem, and they say, well, it's very difficult with the procurement procedure, so we make a committee. And it's a committee that is advising about innovative procurement procedures. But what I want is a procedure for procurement for innovation, and that's something completely different. So we learn a lot of you. We learned a lot of you. It's great to be here. We got the Holland Pavilion here. It's a PPS construction we are doing here with a lot of companies. They are focused on cyber security. And I think it's very important that we are here and that we can show you what the latest technologies we get and to provide to the world. We learn a lot of you, and I hope you will learn a bit of us. Singapore is a city and nation at the same time. I was already pointing at this point. I found out yesterday that you got more or less 100 chosen politicians in Singapore. We as a country, you got 6 million people, we got 70 million people. We do not have 100 chosen politicians, we got 15,000 chosen politicians. The national government, provincial governments, the parliaments, the councils, the the municipalities. We got 400 municipalities in the Netherlands. And I can tell you that will not improve the outcome. It's giving a lot of friction, and it's an enormous loss of energy, because you have always to be according with each other. So that makes me jealous to your situation. We are a nation of cities, a polycentric city, and we have to change the world. When the world is changing so fast, and it is, technologically spoken, then we have to change the way, the role, the position, the attitude of the government as well. And I think we should be more a partner in this process than being a stakeholder or organizer, or someone who's telling how the world has to be organized from top down. So I'm really grateful that I could be here, that I learned a lot over the last couple of days. I hope to learn the next day and tomorrow a lot as well about IoT. We can win a world. We can improve the world on the grand challenges for the people, but we have to exchange insights and experiences to speed up this process. I thank you very much that I got the possibility to speak here.